All right. Welcome. Welcome to the Motherhood Podcast. I'm your coach, Michelle Grosser, and I'm so excited that you're here with us today. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me and just taking some time to invest in yourself today. So today I wanted to teach a little bit on the seasonal model of life. And I know we often talk about different seasons of life here on the show. We talk about maybe this season of our life before we had kids, or our season of singleness, or our season of having little kids or no kids in the house, right? Or seasons of sleepless nights, maybe because we have newborns, or maybe because we have teenagers and we're just up worrying about them. Maybe there's seasons, where we stay at home with our kids. Maybe there's seasons where we're working moms. There's tough seasons and easy seasons, and I don't know, seasons where our kids refuse to wear pants or eat anything green, right? There's so many seasons of life as a mom. But today, we're going to talk a little bit about a seasonal model within ourselves. And I think it also follows the seasonal model of nature, because life is just going to keep on lifing, right? It's just going to give us all these really awesome highs and all this really awesome stuff to experience. But it's also going to give us some pretty tough lows and some pretty painful struggles, I think. And then it's, going to give us all the in between. It's going to give us all the day to day and all the mundane and maybe the routine. So I think it can be really hard to see what season we're in and to see it as just that, as a season, the cyclical nature of it when we're in the thick of it, right? When we're in the thick of it, we can find it really hard, really challenging in a certain season. And we find ourselves just asking these questions like, man, how do I get through this? Like, why me, right? Why is this happening to me? And recognizing the nature that we're seasonal beings, just like everything else around us. Everything has a season. And when we honor and recognize that seasonal model of our own makeup, then we can move through each season, I think, with a lot more purpose and a lot more grace. So when we become more aware of the seasons and the particular season that we're in, I think instead of trying to make it pass too quickly, especially if it's not a pleasant season, we know what to do in each season to make the most of it, because we really want to experience each season fully. We really want to learn the lessons of each season so we can gracefully move to the next season, feeling complete and feeling empowered. Because there's such a gift in every season, right? Even in the tough seasons. So when we honor the season that we're in, we can allow ourselves, I think, to really ground in the purpose of it, because we're probably not going to move through the season until we've learned what it is that we're supposed to learn, till we've experienced what it is that we're supposed to experience in that season, because we can't escape life, right? So even, I think, if we're even remotely trying at life, it's inevitable that there's going to be these times where we just get our butts handed to us and in a certain season, because that's inevitable. So when we're living in resistance, I think, to this season that we're in, that's when it feels like the season lasts forever, because the resistance, it isn't allowing us to learn the lessons that God's intending for us to learn in that season. But if we can embrace every season, we can embrace and maybe even appreciate, even the low seasons, and we can look for the lessons and the growth that's supposed to come from that season. If we can really lean into that discomfort, I think that you'll find that you're just able to flow through the seasons with a different rhythm, because every season has an empowered or a disempowered version. So in each season, we can either be a victim to that season, and be asking, why me, and try to just push through it as quickly as we can. Or we can be present in the season, and we can embrace the season. We can learn what it is that we're meant to learn in the season, and we can just take it head on. So I'm going to come at you with a lot of information today. I know that. I'm going to talk about each of these 4 seasons. We're going to talk about how to evaluate and just kind of become aware of what season you might be in. And then we're going to talk about the purpose of each season. We're going to talk about the pitfalls of each season, what we want to be watching out for regardless of the season that we're in. And then we want to talk about what we should be focusing on in each season of life. So as you can imagine, this is such great information, and you're going to want to be able to refer to it over and over, especially I think as you transition through different seasons in your life. So I've put together what I think is this really great PDF for you, and you can go ahead and download it. It's absolutely free, and you can just use it as a reference. Save it to your phone or save it to your desktop or take a screenshot of the particular season that you find yourself in right now, so you can use it as a guide and as a reminder as you navigate this season. So if you're listening on the podcast, go ahead, click the link in the show notes, and then you'll be able to download the PDF for free there. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can click the link in the description. It'll also take you to the show notes, and you can download the PDF guide there. All right, let's jump in. So we're going to start off at the beginning of the cycle. We're going to start off with the first season where things are born, right? That is spring. So maybe you're in a season of spring in your life right now. If you find that you're really in a season of high energy, right? Spring, if you're in a spring season, you have this sense of clarity around your vision. This is a season that requires a lot of action to implement and to build momentum on your vision. So it's a season of creating. It's a season of doing. It's a season about putting what you've learned in the other seasons into practice. So if you find yourself in a spring, you're probably feeling really optimistic about the future. Maybe you're a little lighter on your feet, right? It's an exciting time because you're seeing all these things happening. You're really engaged in spring. You're really passionate in spring. You probably feel a little bold and a little brave in spring too. You're entering new territory. You're navigating uncharted waters, but you're in a mental space where you're ready for it. You're ready. You're ready to learn. You can quickly pivot. You can adjust. You're just in this space of mastery. So what's the purpose of spring? Every season has a purpose, right? So in spring, you want to be building momentum in your vision, and you want to be developing skills. You want to be developing the skills that you're going to need to thrive in whatever it is you're working towards. So maybe it's something new at work. Maybe it's, something new in your marriage or in parenting or somewhere else in your personal life. Maybe it's a new hobby or a new project, but whatever it is, this is the season to shore things up. So this is the season to make it certain. It's a season of growth. It is spring after all, right? So this is the season where you're planting and you're sowing and you're working hard at becoming who you need to be, so you have the skills and the capacity to carry out that vision. Now, like anything else, each season can have its pitfalls or its dangers. So if you're in a season that feels like spring, you're probably going to be facing some fears. Growth, stretching, living beyond our comfort zone, right? That's all the bread and butter of spring, but it can also be really scary. And this is actually the season I find myself in right now, like so much learning. I'm literally transitioning from being a full-time lawyer to also lawyering, and then exploring this whole new world of podcasting. And while I'm still spending most of my time practicing law and coaching quite a bit, this whole world of podcasting and social media and email lists and everything that goes into making us online business, man, it is so new to me. I've spent years creating the vision, but now is the time to make it happen. And it's such a learning curve. Like, I've been a lawyer for over a decade, and so much of it right now is routine. Like, I have all the systems, I've put all the structures in place. And while I still, might get butterflies if I'm going to court here or there, or, have a trial coming or something like that, like, for the most part, I've done it all before. But not so with podcasting. Like, in this spring season, everything is new to me. And we just started video recording the podcast episodes so we can start a YouTube channel. And our first video went up a couple days ago. And guys, like, I literally don't know how to edit video yet, right? I'm going to learn, but I don't know how yet. So there's like this coughing fit at the end. And I just went ahead and published it unedited, because I know that I'm in this season of growth. And I know, and I'm reminding myself that done is better than perfect. And in this season, man, I am getting comfortable with the messy. And my mission, I know it, my mission's not going to come to pass if I'm constantly tweaking and modifying and editing and adjusting and waiting for it to be perfect or waiting to be comfortable with it, because all that's going to come in time. But right now, like, I can't let that hold me back. I can't let what I don't know hold me back. I need to make progress. So yeah, it's scary. And you know what are the dangers of this season that are popping up right now for me in my spring? Man, fear of failure, insecurity, not knowing, right, if I'm good enough to succeed in this new world, big time imposter syndrome. You know, I wonder every day if I'm actually bringing you guys any value. Like, there's days I just want to quit and I just want to go back to being a lawyer because being a lawyer is really comfortable for me. And there's so much doing in the spring that I think it's also a time where we can be on the lookout for burnout. So if we're in a spring, if you're in a spring right now with me, or keep it in mind for when you're next in a spring, because that season will come, we've got to be careful of burning out in this season. And then there's a few things we really want to be focusing on in spring. So first, we really want to focus on growing our skill sets. If you're in a spring, man, this is the time for training. It's the time to develop those new skills. It's a time, put your head down, get rid of the distractions and create. It's time to network. It's time to make new connections and meet new people that you can work with to help expand your vision. And as you can imagine, right, with all of this going on, spring is also a time to really flex that discipline muscle. It's a time for good habits and functional routines that serve you well. It's allowing you to operate at peak performance level. So it's working those muscles and it's getting them ready to withstand whatever comes your way next. It's preparing for the obstacles that are going to come and building that resilience. Spring is a really exciting time, but it's also a lot of work and it also requires a tremendous amount of growth. So that's spring. And then after spring comes summer. And summer is still pretty high energy, but not as high as spring. So you might be feeling a mid to high energy level. Maybe you're into summer. It's not as frenetic. You're not going as hard. You're not growing as quickly. But summer is when you're in that really good flow. So when you're in that zone, right? Your vision is coming to life. Take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit, and you can just enjoy that vision being actualized. And because it follows a spring, it follows so much building. Once that thing is built, you might actually feel a little bit of a disconnect in summer because it's kind of the end of that building season. So it can kind of leave you with this sense of like, is this all there is? If you find yourself feeling that way, like, is this all there is? Maybe you're in a summer. So what's the purpose of summer? Well, the purpose of summer is to enjoy the fruit of your labor. It's time when you can see that the stuff you've been working on so hard is coming to reality, and you can sit back and you can kind of bask in it for a little bit. It's a time to pat yourself on the back and give yourself a high five and recognize what it is that you've created. And you can kind of imagine, based on the purpose of summer, what some of the pitfalls might be, right? So if you find yourself in a summer season, man, you want to be careful about developing a sense of arrogance. You want to be careful about not assuming that summer is going to last forever, because no season does. So you want to make sure that you're not becoming complacent, right? You've learned the things, your hard work and whatever areas produced fruit, it's paid off. But in summer, we really can't lose the drive that made that thing successful in the first place. And then in summer, we might also find ourselves kind of missing the energy and missing the pace of spring. So we might find ourselves kind of longing to go back to it, but we can't. You can't go back to a season, right? It's a cycle. So all we can do is kind of wait for it to come around again. But in the waiting, we don't also want to miss out on the purpose of summer and fall and winter as we wait for the next spring. So if you're in a summer, take a pause. Take a pause before you jump into your next big thing. Like, try not to innovate again too early. Let the seasons play out, because there's things that you're going to need to do in the coming seasons that are going to best prepare you for the next spring. And then finally, in a summer season, you want to watch out whether you're basking a little too much in your success. So in your season of harvest, you don't want yourself to be ruled by an arrogance in that season. You don't want to slip into a place in summer where you find that your identity is tied to all the spoils of summer. So the approval, the money, the power, the recognition or success, or who you find yourself rubbing elbows with, or all your followers, whatever it is. You want to just be really aware that if you're in a summer, you're not tying your identity to those fruits that you're seeing in that season. And then what should you be focusing on to get the most out of summer? Well, if you're in a summer season, you really want to be focused on taking an inventory and evaluating. This is a time, to assess what's working and do more of it. It's a time to enjoy and to celebrate. It's a time to acknowledge and celebrate, because it is so vital to continued success, right? Celebration is motivating. Celebration is encouraging. But summer is also a time to invest. So it's the season where we want to be those little squirrels that are hiding away nuts and food for the seasons of fall and winter that are coming. Summer is really about carefully stewarding our resources. And it's also about emotionally preparing ourselves for the next season. So it's continuing to build that resilience, build that joy muscle, right? Build that contentment muscle, because we know that fall and winter are coming and we want to be best prepared, right? We want to be in good health, physical health, emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health, right? It's also about evaluating and deepening our values. So maybe this is a time for us to do some internal evaluations and some real assessments, like, what are my values? How do I want to live? Who do I want to surround myself with, right? What mindsets do I need to cultivate? And then summer is also about completion. So it's about starting to close those loops. It's about finishing what you started and kind of bringing the vision of spring to completion so you can start to contemplate a new vision. And then we're in fall. So if you find yourself maybe in a mid to low energy season of your life, you might be in a fall. And a fall is the end of a chapter. So it feels like things are really slowing down. You might even feel kind of stale or kind of stuck in this season. And maybe the things that used to fire you up or get you really excited are really not doing it for you anymore. Maybe your interests are changing, and those things that used to feel really meaningful and used to bring you a lot of joy feel kind of meaningless now. And you might be clinging on to that little last bit of summer glow and really resisting the end of summer. So you might even feel like an anxiety in this season about the winter that you can sense is coming. So if there's a purpose in every season, what's the purpose of fall? Well, the purpose of fall is to evolve. It's to grow into what's next, right? That next iteration of yourself that really requires some more depth and some more opening and maybe some more aligning and some more truth. It's a season of reflection and maturity. And the dangers of fall, the pitfalls that you want to be aware of if you're in a fall season, are just getting stuck in the same old same, right? Another danger of fall can also be maybe this sense of entitlement, like from what you did in the spring and the summer. So I think if we're not careful, we can find ourselves in fall feeling like we actually deserve to be somewhere else, right? And that can spur on some pretty epic pity parties. And fall can also leave us feeling a little bit disjointed and split, because if you think about it, I think spring is really good for our ego, right? Spring is good for our ego and it gives us a lot of confidence, but that's not what our soul needs. When we're in the fall, our soul is craving winter. It's craving a different pace. It's craving maybe some slowness and some rest. So you have these contending parts of you, right? You have your ego and your soul, and maybe they want different things. So that can feel really uneasy in the fall. So when you're in the fall, what is it that you should be focusing on? Well, in fall, you should really be focusing on tying up those loose ends. Take your inventory, like what needs to be done to close up this chapter in integrity. And you should be planning and preparing for winter. So what does that look like? It looks like setting yourself up to have time and to have space and to have resources necessary to really start taking a deep look inward. It's also time to rewire your thinking. So in spring and summer, man, you were a doer. You were so results oriented. You were all you were thinking about was like, what am I creating? What am I doing? What am I making? These were seasons of action and progress and great recognition for your work. So as you're in fall and as you're getting ready for winter that's coming, you want to be reducing your reliance on those dopamine boosts that you've grown accustomed to, right? You want to start exploring new possibilities and coming up with a plan about how you're going to spend that winter season. And then finally, the winter, right? The winter season. So if you're finding yourself right now in a season of low energy, it's probable that you're in a winter. And winter is that end of the chapter. So maybe you find yourself feeling a little bit lost or feeling depressed or even feeling a little hopeless. There's not as much action, right? And the things going on around you don't compare in winter as they did to spring, right? There's not a lot going on around you, but in winter, man, there is a whole lot going on inside you and you don't want to miss it. It's a powerful season of realignment. It's really a time of surrender. It's a time of letting go. It's a time of maybe changing your perception of who you are, who you were. It's a time of letting go of what was easy, what was comfortable. Like winter is all for the sake of who you're becoming. So the purpose of winter is this rediscovery, right? Rediscovering who you are, rediscovering what matters to you. And the reason you're doing all this rediscovery is that so that you're ready to build. So you can build a new and compelling version for that next chapter of your life that really fits into who you are now. And the dangers of winter, some of the pitfalls, some of the things you want to be aware of are really just wanting to get through it too quickly. It's uncomfortable to just be, right? It's uncomfortable to really look inward. It can be really hard to face some things in and about ourselves that are holding us back from becoming. It's tough. So of course, our inclination is to try to rush through it, right? But that's not honoring the season. It's also not allowing the purpose of this season to be fulfilled. So we can fall into a practice in winter of just kind of waiting for it to end without doing any of the work that winter's designed for us to do. We can find ourselves, I think, maybe seeking distractions in winter just to make it pass, right? Poor habits, sloppy routines. Maybe we fall into some addictions. Maybe we start forgetting our values or we're just ignoring them. And then there's this slippery slope spiral that can just make us feel guilty for feeling like we're underachieving or for what we kind of feel or perceive to be a lack of results. So what should we be focusing on? If we're in a winter, what are the things that we should be focusing on to get the most out of it? What should we be doing, right? So it doesn't feel like a waste because we're not seeing those results we're used to. Well, most bluntly, winter is just time to face the facts. It's time to face the truth. Like, what are your shortcomings? What are your inadequacies? Where do you need to grow most? Like, winter's a time for taking responsibility and integrating the lessons that you realized in fall. So in winter, while it's really challenging, it's actually really quite beautiful. It's a beautiful season because it's really all about becoming more you, right? It's about aligning yourself with your top values. It's analyzing what you really want out of life. It's making some tough decisions about what's actually important to you. And it's about allowing yourself to be inspired again, maybe this time, with something new. So winter's about following your joy. And if you're in winter, you really want to use this time to deeply connect with yourself so you can start creating your next vision. And then in winter, you can align that vision with your values so that you're ready, right? When spring comes around, you're ready to bring that new vision to life when the season comes. And I think all of this is just so fascinating. And it's also really encouraging to me because there's so much purpose in each season. There's so much beauty in each season, and we don't know how long it's going to last, right? That's not for us to know. It's not for us to decide or determine. It's not our job. It's not even within our control. Our job is just to learn the lesson that's placed in each season for us so that we're ready when it's time to move on to the next one. So after you listen to this episode, I would really love to hear from you. I'd love for you to just do this like internal assessment of where you're at, right? What season are you in? Do some introspection, like ask yourself some questions. What are my energy levels? How am I feeling right now, right? What is it that I'm focused on in this season? And then when you kind of figure out what season you're in, ask yourself, like, am I just trying to get through this? Am I just riding the wave of it? Or am I using this season how it's meant to be used, right? Am I using it purposefully? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing in this season so that I'm learning the lessons I'm supposed to be learning, so that I'm preparing myself for the next season? And then I would just love it if you reached out to me. Let me know where you're at. What have you discovered about this season that you're in? How are you using it? I would love it. Shoot me an email. My email address is hello@michellegrosser.com. You can also go to my website, michellegrosser.com, and there is space there where you can get in touch with me. Or you can also send me a DM on Instagram. My handle is @themotherhood.podcast. I would love to hear from you.